5 most notorious serial killers in history. True crime documentary. They looked like ordinary people, a law student, a clown, a neighbor, a woman on the road, a stranger in the night, but each of them carried a darkness so deep it changed history. Tonight, we walk through the 5 seasons of evil, where charm, hunger, and madness left behind trails of blood. It begins quietly, as most nightmares do. America in the 1970s was a place of hope and change, but behind that optimism hid shadows. Shadows shaped like men and women who walked among the innocent, predators with familiar faces. Ted Bundy. It was a warm evening in Seattle when young women began vanishing. Ted Bundy was the charming law student with a bright smile and polite manners. No one suspected that behind those kind eyes lived a predator. He offered rides, carried fake casts to lure sympathy, and promised safety. But instead, he delivered terror. Police searched tirelessly following scattered clues. Bundy slipped through their fingers, even escaping custody not once, but twice. His confidence was chilling, his charm his greatest weapon. And yet, for all the trials and interviews, no one could ever truly count his victims. Was it 30? Or closer to 100? That mystery remains. In 1989, justice came in the form of the electric chair. Bundy's final words were lost to history, but his name remains one of the darkest in American crime. But as one nightmare ended, another was beginning. Jeffrey Dahmer. Far from Seattle, in a quiet apartment in Milwaukee, neighbors complained of strange smells and odd noises. Inside Jeffrey Dahmer's home was a horror unlike any seen before. Dahmer, the quiet boy who once dissected animals, had grown into a man who hunted people. The investigation revealed freezers filled with remains, photographs too disturbing for even hardened detectives, and confessions that painted a picture of obsession and cannibalism. Neighbors had called police many times. Even one victim had escaped, only to be handed back to Dahmer by officers who dismissed the warnings. The unanswered question lingered. How many lives could have been saved if the red flags were not ignored? In prison, Dahmer met his own brutal end, beaten to death by another inmate. And as Milwaukee slept uneasy, the ground in Chicago concealed another horror. John Wayne Gacy. To the world, John Wayne Gacy was a clown. He dressed as Pogo the Clown to entertain children at parties. He was a community volunteer, a man who smiled in photographs, who shook hands with politicians. But beneath that mask was a predator whose house became a graveyard. Boys went missing, neighbors noticed odd smells, and detectives began asking questions. When the truth came to light, it was beyond comprehension. Under his suburban home lay the remains of dozens of young men and boys. The mystery that haunted families was how a man so ordinary, so public, could hide such monstrous acts. His execution came in 1994, but the memory of the smiling clown who hid death beneath his floorboards lingers even now. And while Chicago mourned, on the highways of Florida, another kind of killer was writing her chapter. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos was not like the others. She was not charming nor hiding behind a mask of respectability. She was a woman beaten down by life, abused, abandoned, and scarred. In the late 1980s, she turned her anger against men she claimed had tried to harm her. Hitchhiking across Florida, she lured them in, then shot them dead. The investigation uncovered her trail, stolen cars, pawned belongings, and witnesses who placed her near the crimes. Police painted her as a cold-blooded killer, while some saw her as a desperate survivor, striking back at a cruel world. The mystery that endures is whether Wuornos was simply evil or a victim who crossed an irreversible line. In 2002, strapped to a gurney, she spoke strange final words before her execution. Her story became one of the most debated in criminal history. But as her chapter closed, darkness moved west, where California would tremble under the grip of a stranger who called himself the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. It was the summer of 1985 when Los Angeles fell into terror. Homes were no longer safe. Doors locked at night no longer guaranteed peace. Richard Ramirez crept into houses, leaving behind trails of death, satanic symbols, and fear. The investigation was frantic. Communities organized neighborhood watches, families slept in fear, and the press labeled him the Night Stalker. A single fingerprint finally betrayed him. When police closed in, Ramirez fled, but the people of Los Angeles, furious and unafraid, cornered him in the street until officers dragged him away. The unanswered question was why? Why the obsession with darkness, with Satan, with death? Ramirez showed no remorse, only a cold grin. Convicted and sentenced to death, he lived out his days behind bars until cancer claimed him in 2013. 5 faces of evil: Bundy, Dahmer, Gacy, Warnos, Ramirez, each so different, yet bound by the same hunger for destruction. They walked among ordinary people, unnoticed, until the shadows they cast swallowed entire communities. And as their names echo through history, one question still whispers in the dark. Could you recognize a predator if they stood beside you? Could you trust the charming smile, the helpful neighbor, the friend of a friend? Or are some monsters too ordinary to see? Before we close tonight, remember, always trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Never accept rides, drinks, or invitations from strangers, no matter how polite or charming they appear. Share your location with a trusted friend when meeting someone new. If you see or hear something suspicious in your neighborhood, speak up. Sometimes one phone call can save a life. Evil does not always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it wears a smile. This was Whispers of Crime, and these were the 5 seasons of evil. Stay safe, stay alert, and remember, the scariest stories are the ones that are true.